All right, so I'm glad y'all are here. What I wanted to do today, based on some of the feedback I've gotten from the group, was basically give you an update around what's happening with search engine optimization and some of the key things I think from a content perspective that everybody can be working on. So, regardless of whether you're technical or whether you're a web designer, there are a bunch of things that you can be thinking about right now as far as your content's concerned that doesn't really require any technical SEO knowledge, right? It's just the best practices that Google is passing down as their systems change. And then what I want us to do is if you, Katie, I know you have paid ChatGPT, right? Awesome. And Krista, are you using any of the paid AI tools or are you just using
No,
the ones?
no, yeah.
All right, cool.
I'm doing the freebies right now, but yeah.
Sweet. I'll share some links, but if there's an AI tool, whether it's Meta or Bing, or you're just been using Google Gemini, I'm just going to invite you guys to pull it up when we get like to the halfway point. And then we're just going to talk about how I'm using the AI to understand what the search sort of features of those AI know about our brands. And then I'm using that as a content inspiration and idea generator because I really want to make sure that I'm testing. Basically, if you're using a paid AI, that's great, but I'll also include in the slide deck the links to all the free ones because even if you're paying for paid ChatGPT, but not paid Gemini or not paid Meta, you can actually still interact with those sites for free and still ask them a lot of questions about what they know about your business and start to learn more about accuracy and also based on the conversations you have with the bots, really find out what's the hole in those bots' understandings of your brand and what you do, where you do it, how you do it, who does it, and how can you start feeding even the free AI the information that you want it to really have about your business and your brand. Because the truth is, as we go forward, our understanding of search and how people look on the internet, we are about to enter like the largest shift in that's going to happen. And so one of the ways that we can really be prepared, I think, is have more conversations with the AI bots as they're adapting, keep asking them important questions about what we do, especially when it relates to things that we want to be found for and really is like having it almost in our workflow. I would say every quarter to go in and have these conversations with the bots. And really, it's almost like talking to a person and being like, what do you know about what I do? And continuing to educate that person and then coming back and like, quizzing them on it. And then you really will, if you ask the questions certain ways, which we'll talk about in more detail, you'll start to see where it has gaps or misunderstandings, or maybe where it's hallucinating and saying random stuff about what you do, or especially in the free versions, because they're trained on data that's older. We really get to see, oh, some of the free stuff, they're behind the understanding of our brand. And especially in Western North Carolina, because of the hurricane, that is incredibly important right now because the free versions of AI may be pulling off of stuff from a year and a half ago, which if you are in Western North Carolina or Tennessee or South Carolina or now Kentucky, where we've had these horrible disasters, the information about our business from 18 months ago can sometimes be useless. Like that literal location might be gone. We may have had to move somewhere else. We may have closed certain parts of our business and opened other things. So I think the free versions are even more important right now just to feed them fresh information because they're not going to get that from their training until 6 months or a year from now. Does that make sense to everybody? You look like you have a question, Krista.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I have a lot of brands, Sarah.
Yeah.
So I wear a lot of hats. And so I guess I feel like is it okay to have these conversations about different brands that you work with?
Yes, I would do it in separate threads. I would
Okay.
have a chat for each brand so that I really, and
Okay.
I would name it that so that I understand the purpose of that chat thread is to really be explaining to the chat who I am and what I'm doing with this organization, and then to really share deeper and deeper information that is going to impact marketing, SEO, and all sorts of other stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I would just organize it so that you don't have one thread with everything in it because I think that would get confusing.
So how do you organize it?
Like literally inside of any of these things, you just make a chat.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
can keep talking in the same chat forever and ever, or I can make multiple chats. And I can show you an
Okay.
example of that because I have a lot of chats. Because
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of different things. So I'm training the AI to be me, talk like me, write like me, represent my personal brand, help me more quickly develop classes and articles and all sorts of educational content. But then I have clients where I'm training it on those clients. I have threads for, so I have one thread called technical tool questions. And then every single piece of software that I'm using, I have a different thread under that project. And so, like, I can go in and be like, I've been talking to the bot for the last 5 months about the Thinkific learning environment. I've also been doing it with the bot for the last 6 months about the HubSpot CRM. I've also been doing it about how we use this particular tool called Synthesia. And so, like, my help now is my own ChatGPT, right? So it knows what I've been doing for 6 months with these tools. I don't have to keep going back and repeating myself. It'll source all the information from my previous chats, know everything that I've tried to troubleshoot on each piece of software, and then respond knowing that we've already talked about certain things and there's other things we haven't talked about. Does that make sense? It's literally like a person. It is
Okay.
like an entity that is able to remember every conversation that we've ever had for as long as I continue talking to it. And that's how you train it, right? That's how you help it understand what it is that you want it to do for you. So in ChatGPT and Gemini, I haven't tested Meta as much just because I'm mad at them. So I don't want to help them. Copilot as well for Microsoft and Bing. All of them you can create like they use different language, but there's like project folders. And then I can always jump into a chat I've already had, or I can just start a new chat. And then I can name them all. So I literally name each project and then I name each chat.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically like creating just like you would in Google Drive, except that it's actually just the conversations that you're having. The cool thing
Okay.
is too, is so a few months ago, I had the system teach me about some custom coding on our learning management environment. I knew I'd had that conversation in like February or March, but I could happen to the chat like this week and be like, hey, do you remember that conversation we had, I don't know, 2 months ago, I think, about adding the JavaScript to this thing? And then it's, yeah, totally. We talked about blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I have another question. Now that we've done that, we're having this problem, right? So I can really even ask it to go back and I'm never going to remember it as much as the AI does. So I can be like, hello, AI, please be better than my brain and remember every single thing that I've asked. And I'm excited because I think I have a new job in this position. So I'm like, in a year, man, these things have documented like every single thing that I do. Yeah,
Sorry, I just have one question, mainly because, yeah, I've been talking to ChatGPT for over a year. It's a different job, so you just
yeah.
delete those things. But one thing I don't know if you've heard, because I Googled it to see if I could, mainly because Arnaldo in sales, he had a free version of ChatGPT, and we were switching over to a paid one for the mule. And so it's like frustrating because I was like, dude, I've been talking to ChatGPT, I've been putting in analytics, I've been doing this, I have it organized by different projects. And I was like asking ChatGPT, okay, can I? Because I've talked to it too, and I'm like, dude, really? I talk to it all day, every day. And so one thing that I don't know if you've heard, if this is going to be a thing, because I hope it will one day, is if you could ever merge chats from a paid account or a free account.
I know. I'm waiting for that because I will
Okay,
tell you,
cool.
I've also had that same problem because I had
Yeah,
free ChatGPT with JB Media
yeah,
and I was not able to move any of that stuff
yes.
over very easily.
Okay, cool.
Um,
So
the other thing they wouldn't let me do, if you can believe this, because this is the most basic thing, I had it out with the ChatGPT bot about how ridiculous this was. But my JB Media one, I wanted to change it from my JB Media email, which was being deleted, to the
yeah,
new company email so that I
and you
could
can switch it.
preserve that free version. And they were like, we never change emails on the account. I was like, I can't go to my account and update my information. What is it, 2007? What are
Right?
you doing?
Yeah, you can do everything else but that.
Yeah, and they were working on some way of doing that, but he was like, if you do that, though, we can't guarantee any of the data will actually transfer. I was like, so
Okay.
actually, everything you're telling me is pointless. And that was from their
Yeah.
health person. That wasn't from the bot.
Yeah.
That was when I
Yeah.
contacted a person there. So I hope they get that together because I
Okay.
think like with Learn Tourism, we have the business account. And I
Yeah.
was like, why can't you guys just add my free account? Like, why can't I change
Right?
the email
Yeah.
and add it to it? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting problem and something that is good for you to be aware of, Krista. That's one thing about the free versions. Once you have your own free version, you can upgrade it and it'll keep your stuff. But if you decide to like use Explore Asheville's access, you're not really going to be able to pull over anything from what you've been doing in your personal stuff. And so I think there's some good decisions to be made about which email you use when you sign up. If you represent like multiple companies, you may actually want to do different chat GPTs under your work email so that
Okay.
it's just like something that's separately associated and would have an easier time of being moved over, I think. If it was under the domain email, that might be
Yeah.
something they do first. But yeah, the one thing that Stephen and I do, because he also had ChatGPT before we had the paid version, was basically he just sends me the link to the
Yeah.
thread.
Yeah.
Like you can pass information that way,
Okay.
copy and paste things and drop it into
Yeah.
your new version. That's been a little hack that I've done.
Okay. But yeah, that was the annoying thing. I'm like, okay, I can invite collaborators on social media and they can have access to do whatever, but I can't have a collaborator on the thread.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But yeah, they should be working on that because I couldn't help it. I talked to their customer service and I was like, y'all, this is
Right.
truly so basic. And if you expect us all to be utilizing the tool the way you're asking us to utilize it, not being able to pass that data to somebody else is insane.
Yep.
And like, run. We're on the same
Okay,
page.
cool. So I was like, I don't know, maybe you know something that I don't, but
Yeah, no. And like I said, hopefully they're working on that and it'll be something that'll
cool.
catch.
Sweet.
And I think it'll come out to the paid people first.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see. All right. Like I said, we're going to take a few minutes and just jump into this presentation I'm going to share. And feel free to like unmute and ask questions or drop anything in the chat or whatever you'd like to do. I'm going to move through this pretty quick. So just because I want us to get to the part where we play more, but I really felt like it was important to just understand just what is actually happening. Oh, hold on one second. I'm in PowerPoint instead of Google today, so I'm unable to know what I'm doing. Let's see here. Slideshow. All right, cool. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let's try one more time. All right, hold on one moment, y'all. It's putting me into presenter view, and I would rather not do that for some reason. All right, hold on one second. My PowerPoint has lost its mind. Let's see if we can do this again. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can upload it really quick. Sorry about that, everybody. But yeah, basically what I want to cover really quick about search engine stuff is essentially what's going on with Google, because I think even though we're going to talk a lot about the other AI and why it's important, I feel like we have to talk about a little bit with Google what they're doing and what we want to be prepared for because it does make such a difference for most of us, right? Have either of you been tracking like your organic search traffic and kind of know what's going on? I see a no from
We
Katie.
were actually looking at it today, but I haven't in general, no.
All right.
Okay, so I gotta get the login.
Yeah. So if you're looking at Google Analytics or things like that, you might be looking at organic search traffic. And can you guys see my slides up there? Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome. I feel like one of the things that everybody's talking about is that their organic search traffic is changing or it's dropping down. It's just not producing the exact same thing that it used to. Not everybody's seeing it, but I would say half the people I'm talking to have been seeing something like that over the last 6 months. So that's just a good thing to benchmark right now and maybe even go back a little bit to 2023 and 2024 and say, what did our organic search engine traffic look like during those years, or maybe during different quarters, even different seasons? And then where are we at in 2025 and mapping out how they compare? Because again, I think it's important if your organic search traffic is on a downward trend that you really be aware that's happening. Because for a lot of people, even with small websites, organic search traffic can be a very large way that they're generating people to their website. And if that starts to wane and wane, it's not going to just cut off typically, right? It's going to drop off over time. And so you just don't want to be like way down at the bottom of that drop off before you know that it's happening. So I'm just inviting everybody to take a look at that. The few things that Google's done that I think are valuable to everything, like literally everyone who's got a website, I think this stuff matters to you because it's, like I said, content based. And it's more about making sure that what we're doing with our websites, how we're advancing our websites, which you should hopefully be doing on a regular basis throughout the year, is really aligned with kind of their vision for the future. And I think a lot of the stuff that's most accessible to people is actually that content part of SEO. So how can we just align ourselves with what Google is doing? And I don't think we're going to combat the drop in organic search traffic or change it in some way, because I think it's a natural byproduct of the switch to AI bots. But I do think that we can preserve some of what we have, especially when we're looking at organic search traffic in our analytics, and then we're corresponding that to which pages get the majority of that traffic. Usually everybody's homepage is a big part of that. Sometimes when we look at the best practices that Google is giving us now, we can take some of our content and really preserve its strength. If it's already doing well, we want to keep that doing well. Not every page of the site might come through, which is how we'll lose some of the traffic. But the ones that are most valuable, like I usually look at the top 10, the top 20, the top 25, depending on the size of the site, or the top five if it's smaller, just so we can really know these pages are already driving a large percentage of our organic search traffic. We want to preserve them at the highest level. So, one of the biggest changes in 2022 was Google's useful content update. And I think this is pretty straightforward for what it sounds like, right? They're like, your content's got to be useful to people, which is actually part of their commitment to relevancy. So, one of Google's biggest principles is that content should be relevant to whatever the person searched for. So, they are expanded that relevancy to usefulness because I think they're including so much about mobile friendliness and website usability. So, this is where I've been advising everyone if you haven't been auditing your website and you haven't been testing it for technical problems like slow load times, now is the time to invest in that process and make sure that somebody who's got technical capability or paying for a tool that will allow you to see those things is really going to, I just think like now is the time to do that in early to mid 2025, because I think that's going to be really important in the coming 6 months to 12 months. But that was a big change for them. And they really said user experience is our top priority. We're not going to send people to your website unless going to that website is easy, fun, and people click on the correct things. So they're really judging us in some ways. We also really want to understand with the customer journey at this point that when it comes to people searching for products and services, they just don't do it one way. There's no one funnel that anybody is going down anymore. There's 20,000 funnels in a giant circle where the funnels just pop off and people just dive in whatever funnel they're feeling, right? So I feel like we have to get out of the idea that there's kind of like one way to the successful conversion or transaction, right? There's going to be a bunch of different ways. So visitors are using multiple devices. So most people, they went around on their computer, their tablet, their phone, back to their tablet, back to their phone. Like they're just crossing across all of their stuff. Even when they're looking for one type of product or service, they'll do it on multiple devices before they make a decision. They're also going to touch multiple platforms. So they are likely sometimes to look at your website, to look at your Instagram, to look at your Facebook, to look at your YouTube, some combination of these things before they actually make a decision about something. And so that's where I think that old perspective around like click on a thing, they go to the website and they buy my stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, if only that was how I had to think about marketing. My life would be a lot easier and I would sleep a lot better. But we're just like not at that point. And I think because people talk so much to the other people that they know, a lot of times, even if they've searched on Google and they've found a couple websites, they then go ask all their friends what they think too. And that's where the customer journey became less like a pyramid and more like a circle, right? Because we actually, if you look at studies today around consumers, we don't actually start with a bunch of options and funnel down to our final choice. We actually go in this circle where we know a little bit, then we know more, then we know more, then we know more, then we read reviews, then we ask our friends. Like, so we actually know a little, expand out our knowledge of possibilities, and then we refine it back through a process, which is much more circular, right? So it's just a really, when you think about the last 50 years of marketing and advertising, I'm like, man, it's like profound change in the way people behave. So there's complexity there. I think what this lends itself to when it comes to website content and optimization is we have to be creative. We can't just simply approach it from the same angle every time. I might write a bunch of blogs and have a blog strategy. That's great. But I'm really going to want to think about how that dovetails into my social media strategy, how those two things are dovetailing into my email marketing strategy. Because one of the things we can do is since people are using multiple platforms, multiple devices, sometimes we can be present to them in multiple touch points, but only if we are actually thinking about the ecosystem that we're building and how it's interconnected. So a lot of this has to do with the idea of campaigning, right? When I really want a result from potential customers, I need to create campaigns that focus them in on taking that action. And I want campaigns that aren't just narrow. I really want campaigns that are holistic and pull in a bunch of our channels. Because if somebody's on our Facebook and our newsletter and they have a reason to go to our website, I want them to see the same visual prompts, sometimes the same imagery, so it's reinforcing to them every touch point to do this thing that I want them to do. So it's hard because I know a lot of people, they're like, but we want to market everything to everyone. And I totally get that. But I really want to encourage people. That's even outside of advertising, where that's always been true in optimization and social media marketing. We're gonna see this tightening, I think, of these type of things, where again, it goes back to relevancy and usefulness. The other thing with Google that you may not know has been happening already, and this is why people are seeing their organic search traffic go down, is that zero click has been something that in the SEO community we've talked about for 10 years. And if you look at the studies, especially by Neil Patel, who's one of the SEO leaders in like the global sort of SEO industry, 58.5% of searches are zero click. That means people never clicked anything. They stayed right inside the Google ecosystem. They did not surf websites. They did not click on websites. They did not do any of that. They clicked on the Google local listings, the video listings, right? Like they did all of that rather than going to a website. They read the AI overview, the knowledge panel, the frequently asked questions about the topic, right? So Google has actually been vying for the fact that it wants people to be in the Google ecosystem, not necessarily on your website. It's always going to reference websites, but it's definitely keeping people inside their ecosystem a lot more. So again, Neil was able to come up with a very strong study last year that basically said for every 1,000 Google searches, only 360 of them go to the open web. So it's actually a way lower percentage than we've ever really seen. One of the other things that I think Google has been leading as far as how the public is seeing it is that the search engines are becoming what people are referring to as answer engines. And Google was also doing this well before they started implementing more Gemini features because they had the knowledge panel and the people also ask. So they were like the beginning of saying, hey, we want our search engine to become more conversational, more chat oriented. Where if I went on there, even 5 years ago, if I went on there, I was teaching classes about SEO. I'm like, go there and ask a question like, who's the Queen of England? It's not going to make you click on a website, it's going to tell you. It's going to pull the information from the internet and tell you. So they were the seeding this with their machine learning in the last, gosh, I feel like they started doing that all the way back in 2010 was when they really started doing that. So they were already like prepping us up for this thing where we were going to see that the LLMs became more involved in actually delivering what people want. You also saw it in things like travel, where I can just go find a flight and book the flight and pay for the flight. And Google is just bringing me everything that's available and then connecting me into it. So I don't even always have to leave to take care of things like that. And Google Maps, Google Business Listings, same thing. I have to go to your website to call you. I don't have to go to your website to get directions. I don't have to do any of that. They're going to give me all of that. I can read the reviews directly on Google. So if I'm trying to evaluate something, I don't have to actually go to your website until I'm at a certain level of depth, right? Google's tagline, which I'm sure I've mentioned this before to lots of people, which is Google will do the Googling. So this just reinforces what I'm talking about, right? And this is some of the quotes of what they're saying about how they view the future, right? So imagine a world where every online search feels like you're conversing with a savvy friend who knows your tastes and interests, right? That's how they're viewing the AI overviews that they've been building. Right. And so having a personal digital librarian who doesn't just find the books, but suggests which ones you're supposed to read based on what you want to do, right? So again, this really sort of relationship is what we're talking about here, that people are going to have a real relationship with their tech. Meta is doing the same thing. Their Meta AI is definitely going to make a play for search along with Google and their Gemini tool, which has been advancing all along. So they are, oh, sorry about that. One second. Can you guys still see that slide deck? So they are basically building everything in to their Meta products right now. If you're logged into your Facebook or your Instagram, you can access their AI directly through your account. And this is the same kind of chatbot that ChatGPT has, or any of the other ones has. If we just look at what's making them a little bit different, they're definitely taking what they've built all their social products off of and taking the AI and trying to lump it into that like product sort of brand. So learn, create, and connect, right? And they're definitely getting into more wearables. They've already put out new VR headsets. They've also put out new glasses this year where everything is built into their glasses. So it's like they're really trying to make a play for people that are heavy users of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, that they would want to take their stuff to the next level with their AIs. You can see just from these examples, right? Like you can take a photo and ask Meta AI anything. That's also true of Chat and Google Gemini at this point, but they're definitely, because they know most of their users are going to be on their smartphone, they're taking that angle. And like I said, all of this stuff is integrating. So if you have Facebook right now, every time you use that search bar, that's their AI fully interacting with you. ChatGPT is doing the same thing. They're creating something called Search GPT. It is actually right now, you can only get access to the Search GPT if you join this giant waiting list. And I noticed this morning they just closed the waiting list. I'm hoping that I will be one of the first people who gets to see it. Right now, I'm using ChatGPT itself just to understand what have they already trained on. But I think we will see them making a play for search in a bigger way. I'm just not sure if it's going to be similar to Meta's. What is it going to look like compared to Google's Gemini, or let's say like Bing search engine is now integrated with Copilot. So I feel like they're going to do something to be like, this is how you search for everything on the web. They are definitely, they're establishing themselves as we're the coolest kids in the block, right? That's their attempt right now, I think. And one of the ways that they're really pushing that is with publishers. So they've been making all these deals with magazines, newspapers, all these kinds of people when it comes to their stuff. Side note, when it comes to SEO, I've always said media and public relations is incredibly important, especially because you want to continuously build links to your website for credibility. And you want to have a process for making sure anytime you get coverage by the media or public facing channels, publications, it's really important to always ask them if they will give you the link, if they will link back to the site, what will that look like? Which page do you want them to link to? Basically, because I think that's going to become even more valuable. It's really valuable now. It's about 50% of the credibility that you get on any search engine is based on that. I would say, I think that I'm probably generalizing that percentage, but I feel like it's at least half the work we do as SEO professionals. And so I think that's going to become a stronger piece. And then if you went to Bing, and I know people are like, Bing.com, who cares? Oh, they're growing, y'all. They're pushing it. Like they had been part of the search bar in Facebook in the very beginning of that site, and they garnered more and more kind of attention. But with Copilot, because Copilot is now integrated into Bing, which is now integrated into all of Microsoft Office, the same way Gemini is integrated all into Google Business and Google Workspace. So we basically see this stuff is just going to keep growing. I'm using HubSpot, like I said, and they have integrated Copilot. So I now have this AI chatbot as part of my CRM, and it's provided by them. So there's all these like partnerships happening with people, right? And Microsoft Edge is their browser. So similar to Google Chrome, integrated with Google Gemini, integrated with all this other stuff you can do. They're doing the same thing on the Microsoft side. They've always both mimicked each other, which is cool. So again, we're in my industry talking a lot about how SEO is now what we call GEO, right? Because we're going past search. It's not going to be search anymore, right? It's going to be the generative AI that's having a conversation with us. And so that's been a really big kind of piece of the conversation in the industry. So these slides I just put together with an overview of the same thing I just said, but an actionable way of looking at it. If you're talking to people that you work with and they're like, what do we do? This is the part where I've taken what we just talked about. And I'm like, this is what we do, right? We look at our organic search traffic. We really prioritize backlinks. We really look at our FAQs and we use what we're about to talk about in order to build out common questions. And we think of ways that we can make this really creative and helpful on our websites. And like I said, we just want to think about the fact that I think anybody who's involved in like Krista, I know you have a tie into the tourism marketplace with a couple different things that you do. And I think Katie, with what you guys are doing, there's definitely places you're trying to reach that is about bringing people into your space and things like that. And so just keeping in mind that when it comes like trip planning and vacation planning and what people are going to figure out what to do when they come to Asheville, like all of these systems are making major plays for the travel industry in every way. It's like they are all deep in it. They are making deals with TripAdvisor and hotels.com, and they're like pulling all of this stuff in, Airbnb. And so I think it's going to be interesting if you care about that audience. So the ones that I've had everybody playing with are these. And like I said, I am going to encourage you when I send the slide deck that you actually go to all of these and play with
Okay. Okay.
because I think it's really important. And you guys should have the ability to share your screen too. So while we're talking about this, feel free to be like, I want you to look at what this says. So if you see, and remind me, Chris, if you have the free version, do they let you create the project folders? I can't even remember.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten that far. Okay.
And so, like when I log on to mine, there's like new chat right at the top. And then I have a little project folder on mine. I don't know if the free one gives you the project folders or not.
No, I don't see anything like that.
All right, cool. So then you can just create different threads. And one of the
Okay.
things that I do when I create a thread is the first like 3 words I put in it, honestly, I actually just put whatever the title of the thread is because I find naming incredibly important. So again, like if you were going to create one for the tour business, I would just put mountain mural tours dash and then start talking to the bot. And it's probably going to pull something close to those first 3 words into the title of the chat so I can look at it later and find it. The only thing you have at your fingertips is the search bar, and you can ask it to search all your chats to find different things that you talked about. But I'm really going to encourage people not to start like that. And if they can, to really organize what they're doing so that it becomes super useful and efficient for doing different things. But if you want to just open whatever chat you've got, the first thing I always start with, this is very broad, but I like to just start with it, is you'll just literally say, hey, I'm Katie. I work for Devil's Foot Beverage. I'd like to know what you know about our brand and see how it starts the conversation initially. And Krista, like I said, you can pick whatever brand you feel like testing out.
I'm at air right now, so I guess we'll do that.
Yeah, go for it. And then if anybody gets results, I'm definitely interested in you just sharing with me what it says and how much information it is. And the other thing that I don't worry about in this process right away is like prompting. I just want to talk to it literally like I would talk to one of you because I think I'll explain in a minute why I think that's really valuable. But
So I will say mine, because I can't ask that, but I've talked to it about double split so much that yeah, it literally just said hi Katie based on what you've shared and what I know. I mean,
awesome.
yeah, it was funny. One kind of good comparison was when they did the whole like dog to person AI thing. I put in a picture of the dog, and he's off. There was actually like in the background, it had like a bar that said the mule, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like I'm not even on that project, and it's pulling up stuff from my other stuff. So
Yeah, awesome.
yeah,
So, yeah, so that's a great example. And Krista, you can keep working on yours, but I want to share something about what Katie's saying. So, this is where I think it makes a difference just to ask that broader question first and see, okay, cool. Now I understand that it's been pulling in things from other stuff that I'm working on. Again, every time you work on it, you're training it about what you do, which is amazing. And then basically, what I do at this point is I've hopefully talked to the client or talked to the student. And the next thing that we've really gone over is like, when it comes to, let's say, optimizing our website, what are really the most important things that we need to be showing up for? We do have to have an idea of what our goals are to make this super useful, right? Because I think that's how we start narrowing the conversation is we start saying, do you know what we do in this particular scenario, right? Or do you know what this product line is? Or do you know the things that are related to why we want people to find us? So, do either of you feel clear on like when it comes to optimizing your website or using your website, who are the audiences you're trying to attract and what it is that you need them to do when they come to the website? Awesome. Then
Yeah.
that's like pretty much where I'm going to start because I can go in any, depending on the goals. So, give me an example actually. Can one of you share like what is a goal of your website or why do you want people to be there?
For air, I want them to come and find a restaurant on my site to go eat. Yeah.
And what are you thinking, Katie, for Devil's Foot?
aside from buying Devil Split online through our store, I would say like the big thing is our sustainability, like the whole fruit life, partnerships with the community, big picture, why we stand out compared to the poppies and shit like that in the world.
Yeah, awesome. So this is where these are great examples because I think yours is really straightforward, Krista, right? It's like we do this main thing. We want people to go to the local restaurants. So immediately some of the questions you can start digging into are really around, do you know how many restaurants are in air currently? Do you know the different categories of restaurants that are involved in our organization? And I want to start thinking about when people come and look for restaurants, what is it that makes us special and different that would attract them? Right? To me, I think even asking it something like, what do you know about the local food scene in Asheville and Western North Carolina and why it's important? Right? I'm going to start like teasing out that conversation. And in some ways, what I'm doing is I'm thinking about our unique selling propositions and I'm starting to talk to the chatbot about how much it understands those unique selling propositions. Katie, you're talking about going a little bit broader with the brand kind of optimization, which is awesome because it's not always just about products and services. It's about those unique things that would make your products and services different from anybody else. And so I think you can definitely ask questions about the product lines and what you offer and just really have a conversation with it about what do you know about how many different non-alcoholic versus alcoholic things we do and how and just really seeing is there anything in there that's really valuable. Sometimes when I've worked with retail stuff too, each part of the year we have something big that we're trying to promote that's more of a campaign. And so I might even ask it, have you heard about this campaign? What do you know about it? Why should people check it out? Because if I can understand if the AI is getting that information, I can understand if the people are getting that information a little bit. I can understand the clarity of our messaging and how we're doing. And I love things like sustainability and that sort of stuff because I think it's important when you have unique brand positioning, things like that, that you ask it how much it knows about that unique piece, right? And saying to it, hey, we do a lot of sustainability work. What do you know about how we are sustainable and our commitments to sustainability? And again, you don't always like right now in this conversation, we don't necessarily want to give it the answer. We want to see if it can come back with an answer that's super accurate. And if this answer is very accurate to where we are, we're on a good track. That means we are communicating clearly. Because if you think of what the AI is doing, it's doing what it's always done on the back end, which is combing websites across the entire internet, categorizing every piece of content and delivering it when people search for something. So we really are trying to trigger the AI to tell us whether or not it truly understands on a deeper level why somebody would come to us versus somebody else. And even at that point, you can then take it in a direction as you're talking to it and say, if you look at my website, what pages on my website do we have that are attached to the sustainability conversation? Has it looked at those? Has it processed that information? It maybe hasn't looked at it yet if nobody ever prompted. So I even moved from that general conversation into starting to ask real conversations about, has it looked at our website? What does it know about it? Which pages are about different things? And again, I'm acting as quality control, right? And does this make sense? What I'm saying? Like in the conversational part? Awesome. Do you have questions, Krista?
Nothing specific. Yeah.
Again, I think it's valuable to think about this as if you're talking to a human. What if I was doing focus groups to understand from people in my community what they know about my brand? I would just sit those people down and record the conversation, and then I would analyze that data. What we're doing with the AI and how I'm describing it is we're doing it with the AI instead. We're saying you've been out on the internet looking around, or in Katie's case, you've been talking about for months about the company and what we do. What has it learned so far? What is it pulling from the internet? And is this stuff where we need it to be? Does the AI understand our most important products and services? What they are, who provides them, how they get them, who they're right for? Does it really understand that stuff? Right? That's basic like avatar audience work that you do when you're building a brand. So we're building off that concept with the AI and asking it to really understand our brand in a deeper way. The other important thing that this does that I have found, which I never even thought of until I was doing it, is when you talk to it like a regular person and you don't prompt and you don't try to get perfect answers, you will trigger it to make mistakes. You will literally trigger the hallucinations more frequently. So I am able to figure out much more quickly through this process where the AI is going to mess it up and say something old or inaccurate, out of date, or just honestly completely cockamamie. Like it will sometimes just say, the owner of the business is Jack Brown. And I'm like, that's completely made up. Why are you saying that? And then it's, you're right. And I'm like, cool. The owner of this place is Ben and Jacob. And this is who they are. And you need to be able to tell their story, not make up Joe Blow for whatever. So when you talk to it like a regular person, you can trip it up more quickly, I feel. When you're prompting, you're always prompting it perfectly to get the exact result you want. You'll get less hallucinations in that. So for me, in optimization and content marketing, I want to understand how we are clearly communicating with everybody that comes in contact with us. I am just learning a lot about how clear our messaging is and how well optimized the site is in different ways from a content perspective when I ask the AI to talk to me about these things. So this is an ongoing process. It's not something I'm going to do in 1 hour and then leave. Like I said, I'm going to have a thread where I'm going back in there as we're adding new stuff to the website. We're adding anything, man, new events, new stories, new blog posts. I might hop on, let's say once a month, and just spend a little bit of time being like, hey, what do you know about this thing that we're working on? And what do you know about this topic that we've focused our content on this month? How is it reflecting to you? Because again, it's almost like the AI can then mirror for me how clearly we're being seen. Now, what I think the sort of second phase of this is as we trigger those hallucinations and mistakes, then we now have the ability to train them in the correct process. So whether it's free or paid, once I notice that it's making a mistake, I can correct that mistake. I can tell it to look at this page of our website to update its information if I'm using the paid version. I can actually upload a whole email newsletter or a whole blog post and be like, actually, our expertise is around this thing, and here's what we think about it. And here's how we talk about it. And so when we do that process again, I think what's going to happen is from an SEO perspective, is these bots are all going to take over every search engine, and any new search engines are going to be run on them. We're not going to search for things and click on websites. We're going to just talk to a bot about whatever we need, and the bot's going to give us all sorts of answers. And so, what I'm inviting small businesses to do right now and medium sized businesses, I think, is really use some of these free tools or even some of the paid tools that are connected to all this SEO shifts that are happening and to really build relationships with the AI and really make them the best voice for your brand that you can possibly make them. Now, one question as we wrap up that comes up for all time with everybody when I talk about this is what happens if my competitor is out there on one of these systems saying that we suck? And I'm like, zero we can do about it. Zero. Anybody can get on here and say whatever they want. I have no idea from any of these AI people how they're going to handle anybody who comes in, starts using the system, and just wants to say insane, untrue stuff about anyone. Unfortunately, we have not cared about the ethics of those types of things. And social media, if that's an example, we're screwed. Because in social media, they just be letting everybody say whatever horrible stuff they want. And whatever progress we made on trying to make that not the case, we have undone that progress in like literally the last few months. And so that's why I think it's even more important that not only that you have these conversations, but that you build the relationship with real backed up content. Here's an article about us. Here's a website page about what I'm talking about. Here's information about our product, about why our soda is not like other soda. It's not like this high fructose corn syrup garbage that everybody else is drinking. It's super unique, right? Like, how can we make sure that we've got those things already embedded? And we've also given them a place to reference that stuff. Because that's where I think it is going to be a little different, right? If I just got on to the AI and I ranted insane stuff, but I can't back it up. I do think they all have the ability to know that difference. I would say, especially because of Google. I think Google's AI has actually always known the difference between these things, like what is provable and not provable. Their whole search engine is built off of credibility and trustworthiness and expertise and authority. So they've already put in a system for filtering that out. So I think ChatGPT going into the publishing world and connecting with publications is their version of that, right? So I think all of them, we're not going to have to worry about an evil competitor or person who had a bad experience just going in and ranting and then ruining our reputation. I don't think it's that simple. But I do think that in order to really establish ourselves as like it's like that idea of early adoption or like the idea of Google business listings for SEO. If you've had your listing online for 15 years, you've never changed your address or your phone number or your website domain, that thing is going to be so strong. It's going to be hard for any competitors to move you. If you've got more than like 50 reviews, it'll be almost impossible for any new competitor to move you out of the top of the maps, right? And that's because you adopted early and you're super consistent and you're clear about your messaging with them. You filled out everything inside your profile. I think we're going to go in a similar direction with this. If we can all be in these AI now, building these relationships with the bots, really explaining what our brands are about and what we do and who we're trying to target and why our products are perfect for them, and like really getting into the details. And again, that might not happen in month one, but 8 months down the road, if you've even taken a half an hour a month to dig in, I think you're going to be doing something that other people are not doing. And I think it's going to make a big difference as we make this shift from old search to new search. But yeah, I know we've got a couple minutes, but jump in with any questions or thoughts.
Oh, okay. So my question is, do we need to be talking to all the different AIs then?
As far as search engine optimization is concerned, the four that I gave you are the ones that are making a play for search. So
Okay.
yes, I do
So I
suggest
should be talking to all of them.
I think you should create a workflow. Maybe you want to start the first 3 months on ChatGPT, and then you want
Okay.
to spend 3 months on Gemini, and then on Meta, and then on Copilot
Okay.
in some
So
way.
that's a good way
Um,
to break it up.
yeah, so like
Okay.
I think it's definitely worth digging into all of them. I also think it's cool because if you start with, let's say, ChatGPT and you've created a great thread, you can just pull like copy and paste some of those questions or even ask ChatGPT, be like, can you take all the questions I asked you in this thread and put them into one document? And it'll do it, right? Or it'll put it in just one list that you can copy and paste. And then I would literally just take that over to Meta and drop it in there. I would just repeat the process because
Uh,
again, you're going to be able to have more of a comparison on what
okay.
is the same and what is different. They're not all the same. What I right now when I do this testing, what I get from Meta is not what I get from ChatGPT, is not what I get from Copilot, is not what I get from Gemini. So it's interesting. Like a good example, Gemini will pull from business listings more frequently because that's a key component of their business SEO, right? So they're going to pull a lot of that information. I love like for the mule or for like tours, I love to ask them like, can you see the tours? How long are they? How much are they? What time are they? Because it'll often make mistakes with details like that. And then I can be like, we are not open on Mondays. We do that is the wrong price. Why are you saying that? Where did you find it? It'll bring me the link where it thinks it found that information. That helps me find outdated website content that I need to update. So even getting into those, like, it's funny. I feel like there's two parts of SEO. One is really like the nuts and bolts. It's the utilitarian part. What do people have to know about our business in order to show up there or make a purchase? And then there's stuff that's more like that brand type of stuff, broader type of stuff that's our unique selling propositions. It's what people would search for, and we want to show up because it's what makes us different in the market. So it's in SEO, I'm always looking at keywords that way. I'm always looking at goals that way. And so I take that same perspective and I plug it into my conversations with the AI because I feel like I want it to know those really key nuts and bolts, location, address, phone number, hours, those things I want to make sure they're not hallucinating about or there's no old information. And then I'll go into some of the other sort of softer things once I know that I've trained it on some of the stuff that's more important. Any other questions or thoughts? I
I
know
was gonna say, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I had one thing, mainly because that was super interesting. You saying that it like messes up when you talk to a person. Does that include when you say please and thank you?
Yeah, it's funny. I literally just don't alter my voice at all when I'm talking to it. It's funny. I get on there and I'm like I've started a thread recently where I was like, visit Detroit dash. And then I was like, hey, good morning. I'm working with another client. It's Detroit's destination marketing organization. And then I'm like, blah, 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 blah. They're doing this, they're doing that. I don't even think it's funny. I don't even think it out. I write these long stream of consciousness like paragraphs because of all my years in SEO. I'm convinced this is how regular people are going to talk to it. I'm convinced, like at
Is
least
that,
in the beginning.
yeah, that was the thing because I had a chat or an AI thing that I went to last year, and they said they were like talking to the AI about, oh, that was a great thing. Here's a tip of $100, and just saying that they tipped it $100, and they were like, we tried it on this other thing, and it worked better when you fake tipped it because they saw that as, oh, that's a good thing, that's a positive whatever. So I was like, so they're like, yeah, so it helps sometimes to say please and thank you, and I 100% do the brain dump of okay, like they'll say something, I'm like, nah, not my favorite. Can you give me another one?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was super interesting when you said it. Like it's finicky when it's
Yeah.
talk to
And
like
as
a
an
person.
educator, I will say I do two things that I'm realizing as you talk that I think are also valuable. One is not only do I say thank you, but I actually reward the bot for doing a good job. So when I ask it to do something and it does it correctly and the answer I get is correct, I'm like, thank you so much. That's great. You totally understand. And then sometimes when it makes a mistake, I'm like, so this answer is wrong. Why did you give me that answer? And then it's like, because this. And I'm like, do you see how that's flawed? Because I'll just be like, you forgot about this. And then it'll be like, oh, thanks. So I really put on like my teacher hat sometimes. And I'm like, you gave me this answer, but that's an old answer. I actually have to correct it about software all the time because I'll ask it questions about software and I know my software so well, it'll give me an answer. And I'm like, those are the old answers. The new backend has this option. And it'll be like, oh, you're right. They didn't update in March 2025 and I wasn't looking at that. And I'm like, cool. Make sure you're always looking at the most recent thing. And I'm like, because I don't need old information. And so I try to just be like super kind and treat it like a little kid. It sounds weird, but I'm just like when I'm talking to younger people and I'm trying to help them learn something, I don't want to be a jerk, but I'm always super nice and I ask questions if they make a mistake rather than being like, that's wrong. I'm like, why did you say that? Because I don't think that's right. And like that, I feel like the AI does weirdly enough respond incredibly to that. It becomes way more adorable.
I mean, it's yeah, because I definitely when there's something that like a caption they make, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect, and that's the end of it. But I haven't done the whole like asking why they do something incorrect, and I think yeah, that may keep the
Yeah.
AI brain working.
Yeah. The last thing I'll add in is that if you're using the paid version of any of these tools, the cool thing is it can go look at the internet that's pretty much up to date and pull back information because it's being trained more frequently. And so, just from an SEO perspective, I do want to say there's another leap after this, where if you actually wanted to optimize your own website, you can actually, once you've had that conversation about the brand and the goals and really made sure that you feel like it's understanding everything about why you want people to find you and what the really awesome reasons are that people need to find you, then I can start to actually get more tactical and be like, I need more people. You understand we need more people to find us about this topic. Look at the website and tell me how could I do better with my content. Look at the blog and tell me what new blogs you think would be useful. I'm still a fan of doing your own keyword research because I don't buy that the search engines always get it right. So it's funny, as an SEO professional, I still use chat a lot to create kind of SEO concepts, but then I'll go in and do a little touchstone with real research because I just want to have my eyes on it. I just don't trust it 100% because it makes a lot of mistakes at different times. But you can really start to use it once you've had a great conversation relationship to start saying, cool, you've recommended that I build out 3 new blogs related to this topic. What do you think the title should be? Here's some information about us. Write the whole outline or write the whole thing. And then your job is really to go in and make sure that it's in your voice, it sounds great, it's fun. And then if you put it on your website to actually make it engaging, make sure you have great photos or a video or like calls to action, just something that's not just a blank kind of essay. I feel like that's not always a great way to attract people. Like you can get them there sometimes, but then if it's so old school, like the old school blog layouts, I'm like, don't do that. I'm like, have something cooler. At least something that gets them to see a clickable item to go somewhere else on the website is really valuable. But yeah, I appreciate the extra time because I know we started about 5 minutes after. If there's any other questions, I will answer them. But it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
And anytime with the Lunch and Leads crew, I don't know if you're ever doing something like this and you want to talk about it and have a coffee or whatever, just let me know. And we can always like look at what you're working on or whatever. I feel like it's right now, it's a process that I'm creating slightly differently with every client. I don't feel like there's one approach. I think eventually I might come up with a framework where I'm like, this is the framework of questions you should ask. Or
I
maybe,
would love that. I would really love that.
yeah, but I think there'd probably be some like I'd have to come up with different frameworks for different types of brands because I do think it's a little different, like whether you're retail, whether you're online or not, whether you're a physical brick and mortar location, whether you're service
Right.
based, there'd be like slightly different ways to dig in. But right now, I think you can just have fun. And like I said, think about making a new friend with 4 weird AI bots. Make sure they're not tripping hippies when they're answering people's questions in the future. That's my goal. All right. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
See you later.